Now, I want to get into the best way to brand a business, a way that companies have been using for years. But before I do, I want to get back to our follow-along sheet because we need to cover some very important basic truths of advertising. The first one is this. The goal of successful advertising must be to be known before you are needed. Now you might say, no, the goal of my advertising is to sell 10 more cars this week. That's a business goal. I mean, that's a numerically quantifiable business goal. But when we understand a little bit more about the psychology of consumer behavior, it becomes very clear we got to be known before we are needed. Because 86% of consumers say they're likely or very likely to go to the first name they think of. Now, one of the biggest liabilities in business is waiting around to be found. You can see that if you're just waiting around to be found, you're only going to be competing for that remaining 14%. See, one of the biggest liabilities is waiting to be found because 86% of consumers say they're likely or very likely to go to the first place they think of. The other big important point on this slide is consumers enter the marketplace when they have a triggering event in their life. Now, the triggering event is very important. A triggering event is something that happens in the consumer's life that changes their world in some way. It's the triggering event that creates a need or a desire to either buy a product or a service, to put things back the way they used to be, or maybe to set the course for a new future. The challenge for business owners is that triggering events happen in the consumer's life, on the consumer's timetable, and not ours. And no amount of advertising will speed that up. You see, we must become students of the triggering events that our customers have that put us in the market for the products and services we offer. It all begins there. And that's the essence of how we use the psychology to get them to choose us first over our competitors. Let's move on and actually examine what the 4 keys to advertising success are. The first one is consistency. Then there's reach, how many people will be exposed to your message. Frequencies, how many times they'll be exposed to it. And then finally, an emotionally compelling message, the branding message. Now, this information isn't something we just cooked up. It actually is the product of a lot of research, hundreds of interviews with local business owners. And these interviews were separated into 2 different groups, those that said they were satisfied and those that said they weren't. Now, when you look at exactly what the satisfied advertisers were doing, if you really examine what they were doing in detail, we found that these 4 key factors were present in every single one of their efforts. When compared against the unsatisfied advertisers, we found that 1 or more of these key components were missing. Now, to determine whether or not we could replicate this success, we took the 4 keys, we showed that to the unsatisfied advertisers, and we asked them to follow our advice for a minimum of 12 months. And those that did started to report after 4 to 6 months that they were starting to feel better about their investment. Now, 4 to 6 months is very important because this takes into consideration the triggering event. If you have a short product cycle like a fast food restaurant, you might start to see results and better satisfaction levels quicker than if you were a real estate agent where the buying cycle is every 5 or 7 years. See, there's a window of time between an actual triggering event and a purchase called the buyer's awareness cycle. So we're up against 2 unknowns. We don't know when people will have the triggering event that affects us, and we don't know how long they'll take to make a decision. It can vary from product category to category. In fact, we were looking it up on home fitness equipment that may cost over $500. The average person spends about 9 months making that decision. And then they wait about 3 months before they're trying to sell it at a garage sale, right? You know, what we're trying to explain here is that we got to be patient. We're going to talk more about that in just a second. So at the end of the year, not only were all of the people expressing greater levels of satisfaction, we were surprised at how many people said they were saving money. Now, the reason that came as a surprise is we didn't even ask the question. They volunteered this information to us because through that year, through that process of learning about the 4 keys, they got more comfortable and confident, and they looked at their other advertising and they thought, well, maybe they could either cut back or eliminate. Now, we didn't play any role in that. We didn't advocate that. That was their own call. But we were thrilled primarily because we'd found something we could duplicate and help people feel more satisfied. Now, The past 13 years at Cumulus Broadcasting, I've been sharing that information with business owners in meetings just like this. And right now, today, with our company, there are over 10,000 individual business owners who are following these 4 keys to advertising success.